All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show where we will look back at last night's slate. We'll look at today's slate and we'll just game plan and make sure we are good to go. It's an interesting slate, a lot of injury news, a lot of, I think, good value. But what are you thinking, Brandon? How are you feeling about the slate?
Yeah, interesting for sure. I mean, there's the obvious Dallas chalk, but they are all so cheap and they're
Mhm.
gonna help our lines quite a bit tonight. So I'm kinda liking it, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it feels like we're finally getting a gift from DK after they've been putting us through the serious boxing match of trying to find value on every slate for what feels like weeks now. So at least we finally have something here. Uh, Dixon, good to see you, man. Pool is a fool. You are not wrong, but we'll get there. We'll get to that game. JJ said, got to get the last one in before the weekend, especially since the past 2 days have been so bad. Yeah, the Sam injury situation was awful. I had Wimby, I had Poole, Cade Cunningham leverage play that went pretty well, but outside of that, there was a lot of not so great in there. Uh, Martin agreed. At some point, you gotta know basketball and what's going on. Agreed. There's always a balance to it. Lopez said, "What's up, man? Hope you're doing well, Lopez." All right. So, like I said, I couldn't pull the nuts lineup from last night, so I can't break that down. So we can just get right into today's slate and game plan this one. Starting off with the Raptors going up against the 76ers. How are you feeling about the Raptors tonight, Brandon? Is this a team you like?
Not as a whole, but there are a couple pieces I don't mind getting to. So
Okay.
Siakam, of course, 7,900, so tempting. So I will be going there for sure. Schroeder has kind of been in bad form lately, but if he shows up naturally, I'm kind of okay with that. He's right now showing around fill weight at 6%, so I'm completely fine with that. And then Barnes is always worth mentioning. Like I said last slate, he always goes under the radar and just continues to smash. So I don't mind him either.
Yeah, it's one of those weird situations where there's a lot of guys we like. The sim model really likes Pascal Siakam today. I typically don't love playing bigs against Embiid, but when the sim likes someone that heavy and they're not super high owned, I'm gonna at least be around field weight here. Leverage play, I'm still kind of going back and forth on. How are you thinking about Siakam? Are you thinking you're looking at field weight, or you think you might go over the field on him?
He's probably going to be a leverage play, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm probably gonna join you there, but I'm still on the fence. And then Scotty Barnes has just been that guy this season. I don't think I'm gonna get there today. It's just gonna be another one of those guys. I like other guards a bit more, but how are you treating Scotty?
I'll be okay with going Phil Wade. I haven't decided if I want to force him in because I know he's probably not going to show up by himself.
Naturally.
So
Hmm.
I'll be going back and forth on him tonight.
Agreed. Agreed. Uh, Metro, boom. This is a great day to play big. Hey, man, low key, I'm kind of right there with you, playing a little bit heavier. I was just talking to Brandon before the show, and I was like, it's been a little bit of a cold streak. Usually, I don't recommend playing heavier, but I am today. It just feels right. So it is what it is. JJ said Scotty B4G. You guys, I get it. He's been really good this season, but I think I can just let y'all know I don't think I'm going there today. Dixon said Embiid can be got to if you can shoot from the perimeter. Yeah, not wrong. Siakam on my blacklist, no pun intended. It's boom, baby. I think you're black, so it's okay. But if you're not, I don't know how I feel about that. Martin said, just get rid of the first two games, easy fix. If that's how you want to treat it, man, that's not my approach
First
today.
two games have Embiid and Joker, so that'll be kind of hard to do.
Yeah, you'll be getting very different, but
Yep.
that's not how I'm feeling about it, man. Next up, we have the 76ers. D'Anthony Melton is listed as questionable. To complicate things a little bit more, Patrick Beverly is also listed as questionable. So we could get some surprise value here at the point guard position tonight, on top of the other value we already have on deck. So I am interested in that potential situation happening. I would also be open to playing Patrick Beverly tonight if the Anthony Melton ends up getting ruled out. But how are you treating the Sixers here?
I'll start with the obvious Embiid. I'm gonna have a lot of him tonight. It's gonna be super easy to get to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just been playing like at an elite level. So easy play for me there. Maxi is finally interesting. He's finally below 9K. 8,700 is pretty tempting for him, and at 5% ownership, I'm definitely gonna get some of him tonight. And then I guess the rest of this team, it'll kind of depend on what happens with Melton and Beverly. If they're both out, then I'd be willing to take a look at some of these other pieces. But at the moment, for me, it's just Embiid and Maxi.
Yeah, Maxi's finally not stupid expensive for no reason anymore. 8,700 is a very viable price tag for him. And like you mentioned, extremely low owned. So he's definitely very likely to be a leverage play for me on this slate. I like him even more if the other guards on this team end up missing this game. Joel Embiid, I'll be at least around field weight exposure on him. Absolutely no reason for me to fade him at this point. He's been in fantastic form. The only game I wasn't on for him this season was that last game against the Timberwolves. He proved me wrong. I'm done. I'm done trying to avoid that. I will be at least around field weight, but I'll probably be slightly over the field, around 30-40% exposure to him tonight, but we'll see. Anyone else you want to touch on?
That's it for me.
Sweet. All right, moving on. We have the Nuggets going up against the Nets. For the Nuggets, everyone's healthy. This team, Aaron Gordon's listed as probable, but I'm not really overly concerned about any injury news here. But it looks like we are seeing decent ownership on Jokic at 26% ownership, and MPJ and Aaron Gordon are also seeing a bit of ownership, which we don't see very often. How are you feeling about these guys?
So Jokic, another guy I'm gonna have a lot of. 11K is a good price for him. Embiid has been slightly better lately, but I'm still playing Joker tonight. It's hard not to with the value we have. I love MPJ and Gordon too. I'm glad to see their prices dropping a bit too. This is kind of where I love their price, like that lower 6K range for a while. They've been around 7K, even some slates over 7K. So definitely don't mind getting to them. And then I'm always a fan of Murray. I probably won't force him in, but if the domination station gives me any of them, I'm definitely fine with that.
That was gonna be
So
my question. I was like, "You're the Murray whisperer." I
yeah,
was like, "Is this the Murray slate?" Because the ownership is enticing, but there's
yeah.
nothing else that really points towards him for me tonight. And I agree with you. I like the price tag on MPJ and Aaron Gordon. The only guy I'm willing to force exposure to is MPJ. Would want to be at least around field weight on him. I would be comfortable being over the field. Aaron Gordon is fine. I'm not going to X amount my player pool, but I'm not as excited about him in this spot. And then Jokic, exact same situation as Embiid. In my most recent run, I was getting around 70% exposure to Jokic. As long as that's still balanced with me being slightly higher on Embiid, I'm okay with that situation playing out that way. But we'll have to wait and see what happens on the pre-lock show there. Do you have a preference between Jokic and Embiid tonight? I don't have a lean, but I'm curious to see if you do.
Yeah, I see JJ said 50-50 and be Joker, and that's honestly probably how I'm going to play it. I'm going to be probably close to the same exposure on both of them because I love them both equally tonight.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Next up, we have the Nets. And from an injury perspective, the Nets are looking relatively healthy. Dennis Smith Jr. is going to be playing tonight. So that's interesting. Are any of these guys standing out for you as of right now?
Not really. This team was kind of meh. I'm okay if I have some exposure to them, but if I don't, I'm completely fine with just moving on from this team.
Yeah. I feel like Bridges might be the most disappointing player of the season. He
Ser-
just, everyone was expecting him to be an all-star, and he just really has not been that guy this season. I'm okay with Cam Thomas as a dart throw. He's not projecting very well currently in the domination station. He's not really standing out in the sim model as well, but we know he has slate breaking upside. So I'll be okay with a dart throw if you really want to play someone from this team. Nick Claxton as well. We've seen Biggs be able to score well against the Denver Nuggets so far this season. Personally, I always worry about foul trouble when you go up against Jokic, though, so I'm not overly excited about forcing exposure to him, but that is just a fact at this point that's worth noting. But I don't plan on getting here tonight. Let's see. It's boom, baby. Okay. I assumed, I had a feeling, man. Just wanted to double check just in case. JJ, I understand the thought process there. Here lately, over the last few slates, you definitely didn't need exposure. All right. For the Hawks against the Miami Heat, the Hawks, AJ Griffin is out. No other real serious injury news from this perspective. Trae Young's definitely looking like he's standing out a little bit at 9,900. Are you looking at getting there at all, or is anyone else standing out?
Trey's showing up a little bit for me, but this is another team where, as a whole, I'm kind of, man, I feel I don't have a strong lean towards playing. Everybody's still priced pretty appropriately here, so no one's really jumping out, but I will have some Trey tonight for sure.
Yeah. There's other games and other teams I'm just way more excited about actually forcing exposure to guys, whereas right now the Hawks just aren't a priority for me, especially with them being pretty healthy. So not planning on going there. Even Trae Young, I'm okay. Like if he shows up around 1 to 5%, but I don't plan on being around field weight exposure. We were talking about the Heat before the show, and I think we both have some interest in taking some shots here. For those of you that don't know, Jimmy Butler's ruled out. Jimmy Butler is the guy on this team. How are you treating the Heat against the Hawks?
So Bam, he was the first one that came to mind in this matchup of a guy who I want to target tonight. I think he can smash this Atlanta defense. So he's looking interesting to me, and kind of one of those lower owned pivots if you want to try to get different. That's kind of going to be my theme too, is try to mix my exposure on some of these lower owned studs to get different from what everybody else is doing, because everybody's going to be playing the Dallas chalk along with Joker and Embiid. So throwing Bam in that mix is one of my ways of trying to get different. And then Hero is kind of piquing my interest too. I almost pulled the trigger on him last game. I didn't, and I wish I did, but he's a bit cheaper than he was last game. So he's another one I don't mind getting to. And then he's a bit gross, but I have some Josh Richardson showing up in my lines as well as cheap value play. So I'll be okay with some exposure to him too, but nothing crazy, only because it's a pretty good matchup.
Yeah, I'm okay with a little bit of Josh Richardson, but I don't want to get too crazy with it. There's a line. For me, though, I really like the Bam Adebayo call. I agree. With Butler out, Bam typically does take on more of an offensive role on this team, and so I like being at least around field weight exposure. Ideally, I'll be slightly over the field, potentially even a leverage play, which means I'll be double the field on Bam Adebayo. And then Tyler Hero is also someone I expect to be more involved in the offense tonight, and so I just want to make sure I have exposure to him. I don't foresee Hero being a leverage play for me tonight, but I do want to make sure I'm at least around field weight exposure. And then Kyle Lowry is interesting because he's actually the guy who sees the highest increasing usage when Jimmy Butler's out. And so I just never like forgetting about these Miami Heat guys, because for some reason it seems like everyone else does when Jimmy Butler's out. And we've seen these guys explode on countless occasions in these kind of spots. Martin said, is these plays based off of the domination station or real basketball? I would say for me, when it comes to DFS, I've always been a mix of everything. I watch basketball. I follow basketball based off of matchups. I take that into consideration. I also take into consideration our sim model and different tools that we utilize here at DFS Army, and then the domination station as well. I like to see what the projections are, and I either agree with it based off of the knowledge I have, or I disagree with it. So whatever I put into the DS is what I want to see come out of it. So a bit of a balancing act. But what about you, Brandon? What's your thought process here?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for me. NBA is my favorite sport, and I actually watch the games too. So I never just solely rely on the domination station to make my decisions. I manipulate it to do what I want it to do. So, like you said, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, but I would also say I'm not a basketball expert. Like I would say, Brandon, you know way more about basketball than I do. And most of the people in the chat also know way more about basketball than I do. So that's why I always say it's not one thing or the other, but I've also taken down countless tournaments in NBA DFS. So for me, anyone who always says it's one thing or the other, I don't take seriously, to be honest. Snow Talk said, you like Bam? Awesome. Glad we're at least on the same page here. And he's low owned too, which is nice. Takedown said, what's up, guys? I need fire today. Yesterday was Sheiks. Hey, this is feeling like a good one takedown. So let's get ready for it. Snow Talk said, what value plays do y'all like? Hey, we're about to hit the game where the value is. So just stay with us for a little bit. So yeah, we like the Heat and they're very low owned. So a little bit of a sneaky play, I believe. And the game total is also pretty solid as well at 238 and a nice spread. So just a decent game environment that's really going overlooked. And I like your Trey call as well, Brandon. I think I do want exposure to Trey tonight just because of that really good game environment. Next up, as I mentioned, the value is the Mavs tonight. For those of you that don't know, they are missing quite a few guys. Luka Doncic is out. That's already slate changing within itself. Dante Exum is also already ruled out, so that's huge. Kyrie Irving has been out. Derek Lively has been out. Josh Green, Kleba, all of them have been out. Seth Curry is currently listed as questionable. That does matter a good bit for me just because he is a viable value option on this slate as well. But what's your game plan with the Mavs tonight, Brandon?
I mean, I'll have some of everybody. Jaden Hardy's definitely the top priority on this team. He's, I think, the best value on the slate. No Luka or Irving. So usually when that happens, we've seen it in the past. He steps up big time. So I'll probably have 100% of him tonight. Hardaway, another guy on mine, 6,100's pretty good for him. We know the upside he can get to, especially if his shot is falling. So he's another guy I'm going to eat the chalk on. Derrick Jones, he feels gross getting as much of Hardy and Hardaway, but his price makes things work, and he should play a ton of minutes, so don't mind him. When you get to some of these other guys like Grant, Powell, and Curry, I'm a little more hesitant. But again, they're all so cheap, so I'm honestly just going to have a decent mixture of everybody here.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing here is everyone's price tag. We've had some situations this season where people are ruled out, but everyone's been relatively priced up, so it just hasn't mattered as much. But this spot, I freaking love. So like Jaden Hardy, like you said, is going to be in all of my lines tonight. Tim Hardaway Jr. is also going to be a priority for me on this slate. He's just someone I really want to prioritize. Outside of that, Derrick Jones, he's shown decent ceiling this season, so I'm okay with being over the field on him as well. He's showing around 43% projected ownership, so I do want to be over on that. And then like you mentioned, outside of that, that's when you start to feel a little bit more uncomfortable. Plays like Grant Williams, Dwight Powell, Seth Curry, they're a bit more volatile, but they are still cheap. So they're not guys I'm trying to X out of my lines. I want them to be in my mix tonight. So I am comfortable having exposure to them. And Dwight Powell in particular, just because he's going significantly, he's just not getting a lot of ownership. I don't like playing Mav bigs. That's just something that I usually stick to, but with him being this low owned, I'm willing to take some shots here. Anyone else you want to touch on here, Brandon?
If Curry is out, another guy I'd be willing to play is AJ Lawson, 3K flat. He should get some of those minutes, and I'd be willing to take a shot on him. And if you really want to get gross and risky, Markieff Morris is somebody I'm keeping in the back of my mind too, especially if Powell sucks, which he usually does. And the Mavs want to go smaller. Markieff could maybe play at the 5 and get some more minutes there. So if you want to get different off of some of this other chalkier Mavs plays, those are two guys I'm keeping in the back of my head right now.
Yep. And yeah, Craig, I think that's a good point when it comes to just DFS philosophy. Like if you have that basketball IQ, it helps. I know some of my wins that have been larger has been because I played coach a little bit and I was like, okay, well, this guy's out. I can foresee this guy seeing more minutes, even if that situation hasn't happened before. And sometimes you just have to take risk like that. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Let's see here. Hardaway is a natural Rockets killer. All right, man. Josh said Hardaway sucks, though. Y'all know if he's not scoring. He is pretty score independent most of the time, but Hardaway has been really good typically in these situations where they're missing a lot of guys. And at 6,100, I'm a bit more comfortable with him. If he was like in the 7K, 8K range, I'll be a little bit more nervous about it. You are right. Takedown. Powell is a cardio machine, which is why he's low owned. So I agree with that. Hardaway should get 25 to 30. I agree. All right. So I like the Markieff Morris call. He's interesting. Are you willing to play Seth Curry tonight if he plays?
Oh yeah, if he plays. I'm hoping if I do play him, I want him to start. I'm not as big of a fan of him off the bench, so he might be somebody I'm going under on if he doesn't start.
That's fair. That's fair. Definitely at 41%. I'm assuming he probably won't start, but if he does start, that makes him a much better play. And then for the Rockets, I know this has been a team you've been pretty heavy on as of late. How are you treating them?
I'm going right back to Şengün. Unfortunately, he was kind of a bust last game, and it was a Jabari game last time out. But this Mavs team is depleted, and we could always pick on their front court. So I'm going right back to him, and then hard not to go back to Van Vliet. This dude is playing a crazy amount of minutes right now. I think last game he played like 43 or 44 minutes, something like that. So. Those are probably the only two I'm looking at. Some of these other guys are priced appropriately, like some other guys, and they just don't really stand out to me.
Martin's like, it's personal. He's like, I live in Houston. I know what Hardaway does to us. I know what that feels like. As a Panthers fan, I know what Julio Jones did to us every single time. I get it. I agree with you. I like Şengün. I like FVV here. I think these are good spots. I typically like playing bigs against the Mavs in general. And I also am more comfortable playing opposing players against the Mavs when Luka Doncic isn't playing. And that's just because Luka plays at such a slow pace. The Mavs usually play a bit faster when he's out. So I'm much more comfortable getting exposure to both of them. And then Terry Eason always makes me nervous. If he plays, I'm not trying to play Jabari or Green or take those shots. But if Easton's out, I'm way more comfortable getting exposure to Jabari Smith. It just solidifies his minutes a bit, as we saw last time out. So I'll be way more open to playing Jabari if Eason ends up getting ruled out tonight. Next up, I like these last two games on the slate tonight. I don't know if you agree with me on this, but for the Suns, as of right now, relatively healthy if you don't count Beal. And actually, I lied. Nurkic is out, so that's a pretty big injury for them as well. And then Josh Okogie is also listed as questionable. So with Nurkic out, I think we are all expecting Eubanks to start in this spot. Are you prioritizing Eubanks tonight, or what's your thought process there?
I'm definitely going to have a decent chunk of them, 4,500, and him expecting to start. We have him at 28 minutes. I think he's going to be a solid value play for sure. I'm hoping the ownership on Metu stays where it's at too, because 10% for him, 3,500, and you can play him at power forward and center. He's going to be somebody who's on my radar as well as a lower owned value piece. And then as far as the studs, KD, I'm going to have a decent chunk of probably over the field. Hoping around like 40% is where I want him. 9,700 is pretty cheap for him, solid price. And then I never mind getting to Booker. He's usually lower owned. 10% isn't as low as I would like, but in this kind of matchup, I definitely don't mind getting to Booker too. Because like I said, I'm probably going to take the approach where I'm going to have a mixture of most of these studs, especially the lower owned ones where I know the upside is there. So upside is definitely there with Booker in this matchup.
Oh, if Metu, everyone's talking about him, and apparently there's a revenge narrative there. What am I missing with him, Brandon? Like, what am I missing?
I mean, he should see decent minutes, like everybody's saying, revenge narrative if you want to play that way, and 3,500, just a different way to get off of some of that Mavs chalk if you wanted to.
No, that's fair. I really like Devin Booker tonight as just one of my lower owned pay up stud options. I'll just have some Booker lines that are slightly different than my Joel Embiid and Jokic lines. I like his upside. He's been very involved offensively and just really doing a lot for this team with Beal off the court. And then It's a little bit harder for me to get to KD only because of the ownership, but I think this is a really good spot for him as well, especially in that last game. He's really starting to get a bit more aggressive from an offensive perspective, which I like to see. Uh, are you? What are your thoughts on the ownership of KD? Do you have any concerns there?
I wish it was lower, but I get it because, like I said,
Mhm.
9,700 is cheap for him. So that's some chalk I'm going to eat tonight.
Yeah. And then, did you give Little any thought? I know he's been starting here lately.
Not too much. He hadn't been playing too well either. So we got better value tonight. So I don't see the need to go there, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Craig said Banks is priced similar to Williams of Dallas. Better play. What are your thoughts on that? Do you stand one way or the other?
I mean, situation for Grant is a bit better, but I'm definitely fine with that pivot. I'll never mind getting off of, especially the guys in Dallas. I'll never mind pivoting off that chalk to someone like Eubanks.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I feel pretty neutral on that, but I need to look a little bit closer to be honest before I give like a specific answer. Uh awesome. My main priority here though for the Suns here is Booker. He's the guy I want to make sure I don't forget about. Outside of that, I'll just kind of wait and see how lines come together. For the Kings, pretty healthy. Monk is questionable, which does matter. He plays a decent amount of minutes for them, but the main key pieces here and all the starters should be in place. I know Sabonis's price tag is just continuing to fall every slate. I have a feeling he's one of your guys tonight. Am I right?
Yep. It's honestly just two guys for me on this team. I'm okay if some of them show up in the mix, but it's Fox and Sabonis for me. I love that they continue to go under own. The price on both of them is great, especially Sabonis, 9,400. I'm honestly probably going to go double the field on both of these guys.
Yeah, it'll be pretty easy to as well. This slate is interesting because both of these final two games, the game totals are pretty high at 243 and 247. And I talk about it pretty often. I like playing and having exposure to the highest total games on the slate. And it's wild to me just how often these guys end up being relatively low owned. Because of the widespread in the last game on the slate, or just the way we have it set up, I like what you're saying, forcing exposure to Fox, Sabonis. I'm also making Booker a priority because I prefer this game over the Wizards Golden State game just because of the closer spread. So, like you, I'll also be over the field on Sabonis. Not to mention with Nurkic off, that makes this matchup significantly easier for Sabonis tonight. I really am looking at him as a very strong leverage play on this slate. Whereas Fox, I just like his low ownership and I like the game environment. But I think this is a really good spot for Sabonis in particular.
Yep.
Anyone else standing out for you?
Not really. Just those two for me.
Yeah. If we get the news that Monk is going to be out, I will run uh, and just kind of run the models and just kind of see who gets the highest increase in usage. And I'll probably take a shot on whoever that individual is based off of that environment. But I'm not going to run that until we get that news. We can talk about it on the pre-lock show too. Last game on the slate, Wizards against the Warriors. You all know I got heat for it early on. Everyone's like, don't fall for the pool trap. The revenge narrative doesn't matter here. My guy is only 7,200 and the highest total game on the slate with 2% ownership. Guys, I'm going to take that shot every single time. Yeah, it might not pan out, but I'll have 5 to 10% exposure. This is a spot I like a lot more than anyone else does. And I get why no one else does, but this is for me. Do you hate it, Brandon?
Yes, I do. We were talking before the show, and I was like, the only way I would consider it, and it still would be up in the air, is if Draymond was playing. That'd be the
Yeah.
only way I consider that play, but it might work out. You never know.
That would make it so much better if Draymond was playing, but it's the highest total game on the slate. It makes sense to me. What about Gafford? What are your thoughts on him?
Gafford is one I definitely don't mind.
Mhm.
We pick on this Warriors front court all the time, and Gafford's been in pretty decent form lately too. So he's one I will for sure have. And then Kuzma, I'm actually giving some thought at 2% ownership.
Yeah.
he has the highest upside on his team, and he hasn't been playing too bad lately either. So I'm definitely willing to go anywhere between 5 to 10% on him, and everyone else is kind of gross for me here.
Yeah. JJ, I think 30% pool is probably too much. I'm not going to lie. I like pool, but 30%, that's a little bit much for me. I'm thinking more like 10, 15% is my ideal range for pool tonight. Yeah, and I agree. Gafford, I am planning on being around field weight, but there's a lot of center options on this slate, and I like a lot of them. So I'm not quite certain how it's all going to balance out, but he's another big who's in a really good spot tonight. And then Kuzma at extremely low ownership as well. I'll probably have around 5 to 10%, if not 15, if I feel like going a little bit heavier. Highest game total on the slate. I force exposure to these spots, especially when guys are low owned. For the Warriors, of course, Draymond's out. Brandon Podziemski is listed as questionable, so that's relevant as well. He's been playing pretty heavy minutes as of late. Is anyone on this team standing out for you in a really soft matchup against the Wizards?
I kind of got tired of going to Curry, but I'm probably going right back to him tonight. It's hard not to in this matchup. So again, he falls into what I want to do. Lower owned stud with great upside, good matchup. Going to play him tonight. Some of these other guys, I don't have a real strong feel on. Again, there are more guys where I'm okay if they're in the mix, just because of the matchup. So guys like Pod and CP3 and Clay, even Kuminga, because Kuminga hasn't been too bad. I'm fine if they're in the mix as well.
Yeah. And we saw Jackson Davis see a ton of minutes in that last game. So I think if Podziemski ends up getting ruled out, I would have slightly more interest in him. Are you interested in taking a shot on Jackson Davis?
Yeah, I am actually in Domination Station. Kind of agrees with that too. He's showing around field weight at 4%. So I don't want to go too crazy on him, but I'm definitely okay if he's showing around field weight.
Yeah, you made me nervous when you said, "Oh yeah, I'm really on him," and I was like, "Are you like core play? Like what is?" But yeah, 4 or 5%. I like that, and especially if this game blows out, he's one of those guys who will be out there. So I don't play for the blowout narrative, but I'm comfortable with him in that spot. And like you, Curry, I'm so close to him just not being an option for me anymore when it comes to DFS, but it's the Wizards. I'm willing to take a shot against the Wizards. It's also going up against his old teammate Poole. I feel like there's going to be a little something there. So I'm willing to take the shot on Curry once again, but this might be my last time if he doesn't come through tonight. Anyone else you want to touch on here?
Nope, that's it for me.
Yeah. Like we said, guys, very interesting slate. Of course, pre-lock show later today at 5:30 p.m. We'll be able to walk through exactly what we're doing in the Domination Station, who we're forcing exposure to, who we like being over the field on. Less theory, more execution on that show. So click the link in the description if you're interested in joining that. Promo code BDUB, BDUBB for a 10% discount there. If not, we will see you all on Tuesday. And Monday's the holiday, nothing on the weekend. So wish you all nothing but luck. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Good luck out there, guys. Peace out.